and welcome to the Ladies in Biz podcast, where every week we have guests that are amazing female entrepreneurs. Find out how they got started and grew their business. Discover how their story can help you grow your business. Thanks for tuning in today. Here is your host, Penny Redmond.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Ladies in Biz, and we have a great guest today, just like normal. And I'm pretty excited about this. So, hello, Megann Willson. How are you?
I'm really fantastic, Penny Redmond. Thanks for inviting me today.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. As always, we really appreciate all our great guests that come on that are willing to share with us their story about their business and to help all our businesses and learn from whatever you've learned over the past. So, Megann, I'm just going to read over really quickly. And I mean, this is really small compared to what you really do. But anyway, I'm going to go over it on just to let the audience know today exactly who you are.
Sure.
Anyway, so you're CEO and partner. I know I'm going to screw it up. Remember, we talked about this about your company.
We did.
Just before we came on, because I was putting the emphasis on O, but it's not. It's See, I'm going to mess it up. Go ahead. Tell us what it is.
So it's PANOPTIKA. It looks more complicated. I know that people would like us to be spanakopita, but we're not, even though that's delicious. It is a Greek word, though, and it means seeing everything. And when we started the business, we had suppliers that worked with us to help us do research with our clients, facilitation strategy work, and they didn't want to care. They didn't understand our context. They didn't care about our context. They really just wanted to bring in their method, do the thing they do, and, you know, tie it up with a bow and go home and get a check. And we'd like to understand what's going on in the business. We want to know your context, what's happening with you. And so this Greek word PANOPTIKA means see everything. And so we try to see everything. Yeah.
It's great. So you're the CEO of and partner, of course, of a company, which is a consulting firm.
Right.
And a couple of other things, because I know you're always very busy, but you're also serve as a VP of Communications on the board of a Canadian Council for Small Business and Entrepreneurs.
I do.
And you're also a certified Innovation Games facilitator, which I want to ask about later on about it. And you work with a wide variety of clients through the C-suite, right through product management teams. Mostly in B2B, and I know that you've got tons of experience on sales and marketing and strategic planning. And so when we talk about your story, I'm sure that's going to come out. But you also do anything from family business right to global corporations, but I know you are a little bit more weighted on the bigger corporations, but you still have and take great pride in helping the smaller businesses as well.
Sure. I mean, you know, clients are clients, and it's really what they're willing to invest in improving their business, connecting with their customers, knowing what's going on. That's the big deal for us, is making sure that that they're keen on doing that. Sometimes they grow with us. We have a couple of clients that we started off with when they were just, tiny, kind of operating out of somebody's den and, building their business. And we were founding investors with them almost, and kind of putting time in and working with them. And a couple of them are large corporations now, which is really surprising and quite exciting to see when that happens. But yeah, some of our clients are global in nature, have offices all around the world, and we still get the same level of service because the people who they care about have the same sort of relationships, still care about them in the same kind of way.
It's so funny when you were saying about, how businesses start off in their den or their kitchen. It is a lot of businesses start that way.
Oh, for sure.
And it's so cool to hear that, you're not always stuck in the kitchen or your den.
No, you're not. Although, we've always had an office, but our office has always been in our house. And we've never really been corporate. At one point in another city, we did have one of those kind of executive locations. But generally, we go to the client or we go to the client's stakeholders. And so we are half suitcase, will travel.
Yeah, well, most consultants are like that because you go where the client is, right?
That's right.
Or you definitely, just like we are on Zoom today, So Megan, tell us a little bit then about how this all started. Like where did you say one day wake up and say, oh, we're going to start a business?
Yeah, there was this long, there was an ongoing discussion between my partner and I. So, by the way, my partner is my husband. So that's also interesting to people. So
Yes,
nearly 2 decades of sitting desk to desk. And that's an interesting story in and of itself. Each of us worked at that time in the pharmaceutical business, but we also had a background of working with industrial, technical engineering type companies. We always found that suppliers didn't really get our businesses, that those sorts of businesses have their own languages. They think like scientists, they talk like scientists or like engineers or like technologists. And we said, we wished one day, if we ruled the world, we would have a business that was specifically geared to those kinds of people. And so I did leave the pharma company I was working for and worked for a larger consulting firm for a while. And at one point decided I would just do some freelance work. I was trying to kind of figure out how I was going to proceed. And Steve said, you know, his company was being taken over. Maybe we should start that business we've always talked about starting. And I said, right, let's be unemployed together. That sounds great. But it worked really, you know, it worked out. It worked out. We decided, I mean, and this is the kind of advice we give clients. We said, you know, set yourself some stops that say, after this amount of time, we have to quit. We can't keep trying this dream. We're going to give ourselves time limits and money limits on how we'll do it, what the investment looks like, who we work with, what kind of revenue stream we expect to have after X amount of time. And it was really setting those goals for ourselves that let us know that we were on track and it was working. And we've been going since then. So here we are, 18 years, we'll be 18 years this year, and still alive.
Well, two things that can't come to mind for when you're telling your story on that end is, number one is working with a partner, because I think most of us would say, wow, that's amazing. And so I'm going to just, if you don't mind, I'm going to pry a little bit on that end of it.
Oh, sure.
What do you think makes that work?
Oh, there are lots of rules about that. So I think it's a very important, first of all, we have a couple of rules. One of them is, because we were once competitors when we worked for other people.
No, really?
We have a don't ask, don't tell rule at work, at home about work. And so we have a rule that says at the end of the workday, whatever time that is, the door closes on the office and we don't talk about work at all anymore. So we don't talk work talk on weekends. We don't talk work talk in the evenings. We didn't talk it when our kids were at the table. And that lets us have a life that's outside of business. So there is a buffer time after work where we talk about stuff that went on in the day that we need to deal with, or that's bugging us, or is a challenge for us as business people. And then we sort of go, okay, now it's time to call it a day. And if one starts talking about the business, the code words are, did you forget to shut the door of the office? And that means stop talking work talk, but in a kinder, gentler way. So
did you learn that?
A rule.
Did you learn that, or was that something that it was something say, okay, this is going to work, but we know this is how we're going to have to control this?
Each of us had jobs where we had either a home office for another corporation, or we had a lot of work that came home, and we found it's very easy to let your work creep into your personal life and start to blur the lines on that. And so we knew when we started a business together, we'd better be sure that we preserved the personal relationship, that it had its own time and space. And so the other thing I think that's important, besides preserving that personal time and space, is in the workspace, everyone's got to have their own thing that they're the expert at. So I am the CEO because I like to be the boss, and I am bossy, as you know about me. And that's fine. And Steve, my partner, is really great at handling delicate situations and working with clients who maybe need a bit more kid glove. We partner in certain ways. We ask the clients how they like to have things delivered. If they like kid gloves, warm blanket, pat on the back, they get him. And if they want, these are the rules and you wanted the truth and you better be ready to handle the truth, that's me. And they know that about us. And we tell them at the beginning, you choose. How do you, because corporations have their own culture and how they like delivery. So we decide based on how they like delivery, who they get to work with as their primary. And the other person's also involved in the project, but one of us is the leader. So only one is the leader on any project.
You know, it's so funny because I'm a real big believer in knowing everybody's strengths or your own strengths. And then when you partner with someone, it's often better if you partner with someone that maybe has different strengths than you, because you don't want to both be the same.
For
so
sure.
So it sounds like you and your husband complement each other so much in that way. So you each bring a lot of business knowledge and strategy and understanding how businesses can move forward, but your approach is so different, and that's what makes it work.
Yeah, we apply it in different ways, and also our background is different. So with me, I've been sort of sales marketing strategy across a number of different organizations, albeit all of them, I would say, not consumer-focused businesses. Steve, on the other hand, in his work, has gone through roles of which marketing is only one, and he's been in finance and in business intelligence and supply chain and lots of things for one kind of business. So he's gone this way and I've gone this way. And that gives us a very balanced approach in how we work with people.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you know what? I think it still takes rules in place in order to make any partnership work. Not just because you're, you're a real partner in life, but I think even as a partner that's not your family, that they're almost like a sit down where you really do set rules before you start going into business with each other. Those have to be really clear before you even get started.
A lot of clarity and a lot of honesty with yourself about what you want. You know, I could try and pretend that I suffer things that bother me gladly, but I do not. And that's the truth about me, and I know that about myself. But in some cases, that's what a client wants and needs. They want someone who's going to go, they know they've got a problem, their customers are unhappy with them. They want someone who's going to go in and have a discussion and say, tell me honestly, do Bob's pants make him look fat? And it's a sort of, that's the kind of, they want someone who will come back and deliver something that the client, their relationship was strong. It was good. They were good business friends. The client didn't want to tell them they were unhappy with them, but they knew that they were, just by things weren't going well. They weren't buying as much. Can you find out what's wrong? That person will tell me. It's almost like a therapist, or I'm that third party, right? I'm that objective individual that you can go to and say, maybe you should tell Bob that, he's been bugging us in this way. I'll say, well, I'll tell Bob, and I don't have to reveal to him who that came from. We'll go back and we'll share the news, and we'll help Bob get back on track. And that's what we do.
Yeah, it's so funny because, in businesses, there's no straight line in any business.
No.
There's always ups and downs.
Sure.
And the businesses that really are able to continue to be really strong those are the ones that when you're down, you can really pull together in order to be able to rise up to the other challenges, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have to be able to go through, the great times. People fail to build in both things. They fail to build in time for themselves to have some downtime, to feel sad if they lost a contract or they did whatever. Don't mope about it forever. Move on. There's work to be done. There's a future in front of you. But also to take time to celebrate when things have gone well. When we get busy, we forget. You don't want to dislocate your arm patting yourself on the back or something, but you do want to celebrate your successes, because that's what keeps you going when things are feeling hard. You're pushing up a hill, you're trying a new thing, or adding another service where the client doesn't know you're as competent as they know you for this other thing that you do.
Yeah, absolutely. I find that even as for solopreneurs that are there, one of the things that I know when I'm just working on my own stuff rather than a client stuff is that one of the things is remembering the small wins. And it can be pretty silly some days. And I try to do it on Fridays. And
Yeah.
at the end of the day and say, okay, I'm going to look back on the week. And, during the week, it feels as though you're always running on empty and you're coming from one meeting to the next. And you think, oh my goodness, I've got so much more to do.
Yeah.
In the end, if you stop just for a moment and say, even write it down or think about it anyway, on what did you actually achieve in the week, you're always shocked by how much you really achieved.
Oh, for sure. Oh, for sure. And you need to know yourself again. Can you wait to the end of the week for that hit, or do you need to do it at the end of the day every day?
Absolutely.
So figure it out for yourself. What works for you to keep you going? We have an exercise habit. So we actually get up and go to the gym first thing almost every day, unless we're traveling or something that keeps us from doing it. It's either in the gym or we walk maybe 5 kilometers in the morning before we start our workday. And that kind of gets you tuned into where you need to be for the day, makes you feel like you've got some energy going right away. And even if you don't really want to do it, the other one cajoles you into it. So we buddy each other along in work, just like we do in the exercise thing. So it's good.
That's amazing, because not that I don't have the discipline to do that, but I wake up, and when I wake up, I go over all the list of what I've got to do that day.
Yeah.
It's all in my head. And then, of course, it's on my to-do list as well, because generally I make a to-do list or try to do it at night before I leave the office.
Yeah.
So when I get into the office and I really know what has to be done. But
Yeah.
I get so excited about what I have to do that I don't want to do all of those. Like I take the dog out for a walk every day. And in the morning, and some days I absolutely love it. Like I'm thinking, you know what, I am so fortunate to do this. And some days I go and I'm thinking, oh, I'd really like to be at my desk right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Do you ever have that feeling as well, drawing you back in?
Oh yeah, it happens for sure. And there's one habit that's really interesting, which is finding your one. So when you make that to-do list at night, it's looking at it and saying, sometimes you wake up in the morning and the phone has rung, there are messages from a client, something has happened. Really in our business, there are very few true emergencies. I mean, no one's needing heart surgery or something like that from us. But there will be things that have come up that are really urgent to someone. And so having this thing called your one, that if I get nothing else done tomorrow, if I get interrupted by clients, by family emergency, by whatever it is, if I have this thing called the one and I get it done, everything else will take care of it. It will be fine. It will get done somehow. But this is the most critical job. And if you can get the one taken care of, you'll at least feel you accomplished something with your day.
I can remember years ago when I started consulting, that customers are so important to you because you're just starting your business, and it's like, oh my goodness, you want to make sure you do everything for them possible. And not that we don't today, but it was like, the world revolved around them. And,
right.
and not, it doesn't anymore. I gotta be frank, it just doesn't.
Yeah.
For me, I'm trying to take care of them, and I want to take care of them, and I want to be the best that I possibly can for them. But I'm not as nervous. I guess that's it. Nothing has changed. My concern about doing a great job for them is the same. Mm-hmm. But it's a mindset for me now. I don't get as nervous or, intense about it.
For sure, that's true. And I think the other thing that happens is, the world has changed in how business operates. People used to often have a single supplier or consultant or partner they worked with for years and years and years. And we do have some clients who are like that. But there are others, because especially in the really large corporations, they have, bulk purchasing of everything, including human beings. And because of that, for a few pennies, they may have someone who, through no fault of their own, will drop you like a hot potato. Not because you've done something, but because your price was $29.95 and somebody else's was $28.95. Yeah. And as much as we'd like to change that, if they really feel they can't alter that system, then you make some ground rules with the client. You can say to them, look, before you have a proposal coming out, we can talk to you about the things we'd like to see you ask for that are specifically our strengths. We can help you with that. But honestly, if it comes down to we're just going to haggle over pennies, then maybe it's better that we just walk away and shake hands and we try on the next one. Because feeling like you've lost either side of that negotiation, it never works out well. You don't work well together. You don't have the same trust relationship. So you might as well bite the bullet and say, well, this time I'm going to have to find business somewhere else.
When you first started out, though, with your husband, you know, a lot of us are lucky enough. If we start out a business, we might have a spouse or a partner that at least we know can pick up some of the financial pieces that we're going to be missing for a while.
Yeah.
You know, even though you do plan and everything, but it's just like really, and so that, to me, that must have been very, very frightful, like to have both of you going at it at the same time. But yet I sort of think, wow, that would be so cool because you have someone that you're partnering with that understands exactly what you're going through.
I had someone I could trust, I think is the thing. If you have a partner you can really trust, that's important. We tell the story about that a little bit sometimes. And because Steve's company had gone through this merger, he had an opportunity to either take a transfer to another city, which the timing wasn't great. Our kids, one was finishing high school. You know, it just wasn't a great time to move everyone. And we talked about it seriously about whether that's what we should do. And we have a family meeting whenever there's a family decision. So we've moved a few times. And we looked at it and we said, well, that might not be the best option. And so the other option was he could take a package. And it was a decent one. We had some, so we did have some buffer money. But I mean, that's what you have to live on. That's it. And when it runs out, it runs out. And if you're not job hunting, so the rule was we would work at our business until half of the severance money was gone. And when half the severance money was gone, we would have to get real jobs. So apparently we have not yet got real jobs and we're still okay.
Well, that's wonderful. It's so funny because that's exactly, I had a package as well. And that's what allowed me the financial freedom to be able to start business with. Having that as a little bit of a cushion at the very beginning made it a lot easier, right? But it was hard because you think, okay, I've got this, extra cash. If I got another real job, as we say, or with another corporation, then, you would have quite a bit of cash in your hand right up front.
That's right.
It's a risk at starting a business. And I know that I've had lots of guests on that where we've talked about side hustles and starting businesses at the beginning as a side hustle, but you two both went in it with both feet.
Oh, we sure did. And I guess the other thing is, though, the thing that people don't always think about, they think about the money, about the cost and the risk of loss of that. They don't think about the cost of regret. And at some point you have to say to yourself, I've been thinking about this for a really long time. Maybe it will work, maybe it won't work. But if I don't try now, maybe I won't get another chance. So I'd better take that chance now. And so then having made that decision, you say, what's the best way I can use that buffer or that rainy day fund or whatever it is that you're going to use as your backup, your safety net. And once in a while you hear one of those stories where someone had no safety net left and their last possible option was to start a business because they hadn't found a job.
Yeah.
And for whatever divine intervention, I don't know what you call it, it worked out for them. Those things tell me you were meant to be somewhere and to be doing something. So, I encourage people to try if they want to try and do something different. One of my best clients ever in this business is a realtor now. He had a dream of doing that. He was making small property investments. He thought it would be fun, but he was in a corporation and he said, I'm never really going to do it. But I keep thinking I'd love to do that someday. And surprise, his entire department got folded out of the company during a downturn in 2012 or so. And he's a really successful realtor now, and he's got a great business going, and he's super happy, and he loves what he does every day. So how can you regret that?
Oh, exactly. Well, sometimes I think things find you as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't, did you ever think did you always want to be an entrepreneur? Like, did you always say, I always wanted to have my own company, or is it just?
I always dreamed when I was a kid of being, you know, I might be a teacher or a firefighter, or so I was rescuing things, solving problems, being at the front, having some kind of hero thing going on. So I like to do things. I like to make stuff happen. I like to, you know, help people learn things. And so all those things were always in my mind. And I was often dissatisfied at work and had this feeling that said, I think I could do this better. And I think that's very common to entrepreneurs, saying, if I were serving me, the customer, I would do it this way. Why are they not doing it this way? And that seems to be a super common thing I hear from other, especially women who start businesses of their own.
Yeah, because I think that you have a better understanding of what the, you know, what are the areas what you could really improve on. And I know even like I was a buyer for years, it's often we used to say, don't they get it? Like, don't they understand what we need? Like, even though we do presentations, we tell them our strategy, everything, don't they see?
Yeah.
You know,
they don't feel the feelings of the impact on you and how it, you know, affects your work every day. So those are the things that we talk to customers about. I can give you an example. You know, quite a long time ago, we tell this story to people. We were doing a study of 2 different models of patient support programs for quite a debilitating disease, where these patients would typically have a nurse on call that they could phone if they had problems with their medication or their treatment or anything. And there's a lot of suffering in their lives from this illness. So there are 2 methods. One method, both are run by sort of call centers. Both methods, staff nurses to do the responding. In one, if I dial in, the system gives me a nurse who gets a screen that has my case, any nurse who's working at that time. The other system routes me to the same person every time, as long as that person is free, and beeps them to call me back if they're not free. And a man said to me, who had experienced both, he said, I know that both of them are giving me good advice. They're talking about my medical condition, but at one of them I call and I get somebody to talk to. At the other one I get Susie, and I'd rather talk to Susie than somebody. When you can tell a story like that to your client, then they understand why how they deliver to their customer is so much more important than just what they deliver.
You know, understanding pain points, I think, of your customer base, if you understand that and you can solve that, then you're going to have a successful business.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wanted to go back on something because we've talked about on the show before about niche marketing or niche businesses.
Sure.
And I think that would be fair to talk about that with you because with your business, you definitely focus in certain categories or certain industries. So can you explain to us which ones that you're looking at right now or which ones you've always actually worked with?
Sure. So when we started our primary business, and I would say 90% of our work came from the pharmaceutical industry or healthcare businesses. And that was really, we had a lot of bench strength there. Both of us had worked in that industry. And then the other industries where we worked, we didn't always have everything in common. But as our clients moved out into other businesses, we realized that really the common thread wasn't just that it was pharma, it was that the people in the companies that we worked with, our best clients, are scientific, are technical, are healthcare focused, are industrial. They have special languages that they speak. They either speak engineer speak or pharma speak, or, you know, they're nurses or they're surgeons or they're radiologists or they're something. And so they have a special way of dealing with things. So it was being able to be culturally sensitive, if you will, to how they operate that let us see who the clients were. And the vast majority of our clients are still that. I would say the exceptions are only someone who started as that and they've moved into another business now, and they trust us and want us to come with them anyway.
It's so funny because many industries have their own vocabulary.
Yes.
And acronyms, and it's just amazing how if you're talking to someone that's not in the industry, that you go back home and you go, what does that mean?
Yes.
What's that acronym?
That's right.
Well, I was in the retail industry, and I got to tell you at the very beginning, and oh my goodness, we definitely had our own vocabulary.
Yeah, for sure. One of the first bosses I had gave us a book, actually, when we came into their business, called a dialect directory. And it said, in other industries, they might say this or this, we would say this. He'd actually created a little booklet to try and help you overcome that chasm faster. What a great thing to do.
Can you remember an example?
Yeah.
I put you on the spot, but can you remember something?
No, absolutely. I'm sure I don't. But it was just so interesting to kind of get it. I mean, so that was that business was the printing business. So I was in the facility management industry, where you go in and you work with a company to run their printing and copying operations in like a large firm, a financial services firm or a giant law firm or something like that. So you're doing something that's core to your business for people who rely on that thing, but it is not their expertise. So that's not unlike what we do now.
No. So one of the things, when I read over your bio, it was said about the innovation games that you're a facilitator. I actually don't know anything about that. And I'm thinking it sounds like a great business tool. So I'm wondering, can you give me a little bit of an understanding what that is, and maybe share it with the audience that we have today, because maybe it's a tool they could be using for their biz.
Sure. Innovation games are fantastic. So we actually know there's a book that came out quite a number of years ago called The Innovation Games, written by a guy named Luke Homan. And we learned about Luke. I was at a conference and they were doing some innovation games practice there. And I said, I have to understand more about this guy, because this is fantastic. It's really using metaphor to get people to solve problems, make decisions, prioritize. So using frameworks and models instead of just asking questions. So I reached out to the two women who had given the seminar, and one of them said, oh, well, I can give you a phone number for Luke. Sure. Why don't you give him a call? She didn't tell me she was giving me his personal cell phone.
Oh.
So I called this guy in California and said, hello, because I thought I would get voicemail, but I didn't, and said, do you teach courses? And he said, yes, we do. And they were, in fact, just at the beginning of training people in the methods he uses. And he said, sure. And I said, well, when is your next course? And he said, when would you like it to be? And we kind of had this mutual, conversation. And so we flew out to California and did training with them. And we've been using those basic methodologies for quite a long time now. So it's really interesting. An example would be, there's a game called Sailboat. And Sailboat is a lot like doing a SWOT analysis, but aren't SWOT analysis boring? Like, don't they sound terrible? And people are like, and people say, well, what's a strength versus an opportunity? And what's a weakness versus, so a sailboat, you use a metaphor and you say, all right, so the sailboat is you, and you're sailing towards the sunny, beautiful island on the other side of the lake where you want to go. And it's filled with everything you want, palm trees and barbecue and, whatever's good in your life. The anchor of the sailboat, if it's hanging down, is dragging you back. So that's a weakness, right? That's your weakness. So that anchor, if it has a really long rope on it, it drags you more. So you can identify not just what the problem is that's holding you back, but how intense is it? And then the strengths are the winds blowing your sail forward. And the threats are the rocks or the shoals as you get close to your goal, and so on. So if you picture this visually and have people then identify it that way, my gosh, they get it so much better. And they give better answers, and their stories get more intense, and they start telling the story of why it bothers them. So we've been using models like that to help people do things, all sorts of different frameworks. And people who use the methods now, like us, we start developing our own frameworks or using them in different ways and using them for different purposes. And then we share with each other. So we have a community where we meet regularly. The latest offshoot that's been really fantastic is, for a couple of years now, Luke has developed some software called Weave, and weavers like us, so people who practice the methodology, we use those techniques online. So I could actually invite you to a community to play an innovation game with your colleagues at remote locations all over the world. And imagine suddenly you don't have to fly everyone to, so companies who couldn't afford to bring everyone together to brainstorm or work on a big problem or set their priorities for next year for the strategic plan. You know, it used to be, oh, just those guys in head office way up here, they get to make those decisions all by themselves. And now you can ask the field offices to chime in and help set the priorities using different kinds of tools. And suddenly you're doing things better. You're making better decisions because you're involving the people who will have to be part of the implementation.
And more timely too, because, you know, before, I know in corporations and you have certain budgets, and sometimes you'd have to wait to the following year because it didn't fit in the budget for everyone to get in the plane.
That's right.
And then not only that, but you had to have someone that had to do the planning, have the hotels, had the flight.
Yeah.
Not just expenses, but someone having to plan all of this. And all of a sudden, now you can be more reactive a little bit faster because of that, and because of tools like what we're on right today.
That's right. And so using a tool like Weave, we get to, you know, you can be in the meeting with us. If you're working from home and your dog wanders in, well, that's fine. You know, we regularly have dogs attend our sessions, or kids, or husbands who didn't realize that their wife was on a Weave conference at the time, and it's fine and it works. And you can set it up in ways that, you know, you find the best time zone and so on. So it just makes it so much easier to get things accomplished, to get decisions made.
It reminds me of just on the national news, this is probably over a year ago, and a gentleman was talking about something very, very serious. It was, I think, politically motivated. And anyway, his children came in, and his wife.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
And she was trying desperately to get them out, and they were having chatters. Oh my gosh, it was so funny, and it was absolutely so perfect, because what the gentleman was talking about was so serious.
Yeah.
And yet it lightened everything up, and it was totally amazing. I think it went viral later on.
For sure. And you know, for parents who work at home, that's life. Like, anyone who has a home office can't tell me that they haven't had at least one occasion when either their cat has walked across their keyboard, or their kid has come in, or, you know, someone turned the cartoons up too loud in another room, or whatever it is. So we might as well prepare for it. This is the real world. It's where we are now.
Well, it humanizes us too, right? Right. I think that we're like everybody else. We've got family. We have things. Shit happens. That's all there is to it.
That's right. That's right.
And I was in a position where I had 3 people that were on my team, and one was not in Canada, was in the UK. Another one was down in Windsor. Another one was in Halifax. Here I am in Toronto. And you know, so the tools that we have today allows everyone to work remotely and meet. And just like with using innovation games, I wish I had known about it, because I think it would have been really great, especially with having a team that is, you know, in different places. So once a week, we definitely got to meet. But
yeah, for sure.
Great to have some use the innovation games to start thinking differently, rather than saying, okay, today we're going to go over what's the problems, what's the challenges, what are the
for sure. Yeah. Oh, for sure. And so if you've got, you know, if any of the listeners from the podcast and viewers from the podcast want to, sometime have a demo and think about that, by all means, like just reach out and I can set up for them to, see what it's like to make decisions with people who aren't in the room with you, and that it really does feel just as good as sitting around that boardroom table or standing in front of a flip chart.
Well, the other thing is too, because if you're having all your people that are reporting to you are remote, you don't have the time to chit chat and to get and understand what they're going through in necessarily everything in their business.
Oh,
And
for
by
sure.
doing that, it kind of like puts you more, you're more sensitive to how they're really feeling. Rather than just
Absolutely.
hearing what the issue is, you're hearing how they're feeling. And you want to make sure, if you're a leader, you want to make sure that everyone is really feeling good about what they're doing, and they're not feeling like someone is something, there's too many barriers for them to achieve what they want to reach out to, or what to achieve their goals, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and we use tools to do everything from goal setting to divvying up the budget to, blue saying what are we going to do next year, to what's the next release of our product look like, to if we add these features to the product, we have to drop something, what will we drop? And all those are tough decisions. And so if you can make it sounds, maybe corny to some people, and certainly to serious scientists, sometimes when you explain it the first time, and you say, we're going to play games in order to help you make serious decisions. So serious games. They just think, really, that seems bizarre. But when they've tried it, they come back because they know it does work and it does help.
I can tell you for sure, I would be one of those naysayers when someone would tell me that we're going to play a game, and I'm going, oh my God, but I'm so stressed already. And you want me to play games, like,
Right.
And then I know I would be the first one saying, that was amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Talk about switching, right? It's like, oh, so I wonder if you see that often. The ones
It's super rewarding for us to have people come up afterward and say, one of the best comments I ever got was from the boss we had a couple of organizations that were merging. So we played a number of sessions with them in order to help them figure out how they would work together going forward, and to help them understand what each of the two teams saw as problems and barriers and opportunities and all those things we talked about. And he said, I've never had a session where I had people, each person left with their own kind of personal marching orders. So we gave everyone an accountability plan, which they created as part of their session.
wow,
So they knew,
cool.
this is Christine's job. This is Ramesh's job. This is Susan's job, and so on. They each had a piece of paper when they left that said, this is, or in their case, a screen capture that said, this is what we're going to do.
Well, I can see, it's so funny because now I understand what you're talking about, the innovation games. I'm thinking, man, yeah, the people that are mostly your clients would probably be the ones that might struggle the most with this.
Yeah.
And
and when they're far away from each other, it's tough.
Yeah, it is tough. And you know what? The other thing is that you aren't human, or because you're on, if you're in a satellite office or working out of your home all the time, then there isn't that human factor that you can connect. And I know with when I had the group of people that were in different places, it was the first thing we always did was make sure we had small talk.
Right.
And this kind of is more of a structured small talk in some ways. But
it's just a way for people, to work together and use tools together. And again, because in their businesses, they have a common language that they use for the business.
Oh, yeah.
By using frameworks, you're giving them a common language for problem solving. And so you're defining, what are the languages? What do the tools mean? Just like there are rules in games, and when you play Monopoly, this is what the players are, and this is what the chance cards mean, and this is what community chest is all about. When you play a Weave game with someone, again, it helps them understand, using a framework, what the rules are of engagement in the decision making. So they don't have to argue about how do we make the decision. They just get to work on making the decision.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to ask you one other question, is that because of being a consultant, is if we have someone listening today and they were thinking about becoming a consultant, is there something that you'd like to say, hey, you should really think about this first before moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think people have to be really authentic about what it is that they're going to do. There's a lot of consultants who start off as being an expert in something because they just came out of a specific business. So they just worked in a widget factory and now they're an expert in widget making. But they have to think about 5 years on, when you're not working in the widget factory anymore, will you be an expert in widget making? Probably not. So you need to be engaging in something as a consultant that is a thing where you want to keep growing and educating yourself. In my case, that's understanding customers, using different frameworks and tools to make tough decisions, getting people to speak to each other with a common language. And so those are the things I look to do in my business. I think people should be really systematic. So, you know, that's why I've been putting together the program that we were talking about. So I'm going to have a business challenge for people.
Yes, we're going to talk about that.
I'll talk a little bit about that. So it's the 5x5 challenge for sharper focus in your business. And I'll be launching that pretty soon. For 5 days a week, over 5 weeks, I'm going to have a little video clip for people who are thinking about starting a business or who are in their business already. And each day I'm just going to ask you to think about one aspect of your customers or your products or your process or your partners that you work with and so on, and just get people. It's hard. You know, when you mentioned this before, when we run our own business, you go out, you've got to hunt the business, you've got to deliver the business. You've got to, when you're super busy, how do you prospect? If you're also making the thing, so you're a cake baker or some kind of creative, or you write reports, you're producing the product, you're finding someone to buy the product, you're selling the product.
Yeah.
It's complicated to do all those things. And when are you thinking about, what's my strategy? How does my business work for me? Am I doing this the best way possible? Am I giving attention to just thinking about my business? So because we run into this problem ourselves, I thought, why don't I put something together to give everybody a little spark every day that's going to help them think about, how do I think strategically just today about my business, about one small aspect, just one thing each day, 25 days.
So where are they going to find the videos? Are you doing it on Facebook or is it on your?
So what I'm going to do is they can subscribe and they can just email me. So I know we're going to have contact at the end, and I will send them an invitation from MailChimp. I'll put them on a list, and then I'm going to blast them out stuff. We will have a closed Facebook group that they can join. Great, so that they can meet other people who are maybe interested in finding out about their businesses and have conversations with each other, and maybe even have a chance to network a little. So, you know, I tried to build in other things beyond just me sending you a video, but a chance to commiserate with your buddies or meet some new ones and, you know, build some camaraderie.
Yeah, well, certainly the emails are great because we can respond to you, and we'll go over your connections and addresses that how people can connect with you. Sure. But I also love Facebook groups as well. They are, you know, there's a lot of them out there. It seemed like, you know, once,
for sure.
You know, the Facebook came out when it was great, when there was families that were using it, and the business went, yahoo, we have a Facebook group. And the wonderful strength about a Facebook group is that once you're a member, then at least you can see the other questions that other people are asking.
That's right.
And I often find with entrepreneurs and running your own business that sometimes it's just nice to see that another person is going through with what you're going through.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not unique in any way. It might be a little bit of a different story, but it's pretty much the same story.
And they'll tend to, you know, people will tend to give each other back pats and handholds if they need it, or whatever it is. And it's tiring to do that for yourself, quite frankly. It's nice to have somebody else help you out and either be your therapist or be your cheerleader, or whatever those different roles are. That, you know, everyone needs a cheerleader, everyone needs a therapist, everyone needs that aunt who would say, just shut up and eat your soup, whatever it is. So all those people will show up in your Facebook group.
Well, my pom-poms are put away today, so I can't take them out. But it is true. Well, I'm so glad that you're doing this. This is great. So let's go over exactly on how people can connect with you. And I know one version is an email. So your email address is? And
Yeah, so my email is great. So it is Megann@panoptika.ca. So my name is complicated. I make it hard for you to find me. So it's Megann with 2 N's, Megann and it's PANOPTIKA, and it's way simpler than it sounds. It's Pan, like Peter Pan, Pan, and then Optika with a K, OPTIKA.ca.
Well, we're going to put it down in the notes anyway, so people will see.
Absolutely.
The notes.
And then on Twitter, you can find us at PANOPTIKA. That's where you can find us corporately, and I'm sure you'll see me personally lurking around there. So I'm Megann with 2 N's, Willson with 2 L's, TO, or the double, as I get nicknamed by people I know. And
you're not the only one. I had Ann Wooten. I was talking to her yesterday. Ann's got 2 N's, 2 O's, and 2 T's.
Exactly. So, so that's good. People can find me there. And of course, on Facebook, facebook.com, panoptika.ca.
Yeah, and your website, they can be able to find you on your website
right.
as well, which is really good.
www.panoptika.ca.
If they can't find us, they can always send a note on Ladies on Biz. I'm sure we can connect them as well.
You've got it for sure.
And this is why it's so funny when you're talking about your video challenge. I really thought, you know what, that's why we have podcasts and we have guests just like you, Megann, is so that entrepreneurs can understand what they're going through and to have, be inspired and to say, you know what, we can start this business.
Yeah.
And here's some tools that we can use to be really effective. And so that makes
people have ideas that are amazing when I talk to them, and I always say to them, try. Like, what is the worst that can happen? Honestly, if you try. So what if you embarrass yourself a little? So what if it's hard and a bit herky-jerky at the beginning? And I look back. I was a really early Twitter user, for example, and I look back at some of those first tweets and I'm like, wow, that was pretty lame. But I have friends, I have made clients on Twitter. So I'm living proof that you can get clients who are people who are completely unconnected to you from social media.
Oh, without a doubt. And I think, I always suggest that you pick one that to begin with, if you're not a social media user already, but pick one and just have fun with it, not get too nervous about it.
Yeah.
One of the things.
Get somebody to help you pick which is a good one. And gee, I wonder, maybe Penny Redmond could help.
Who could that be? Well, one of the things that I did do, and when I first started, is that I actually used one that wasn't my business name. I had another business that I used. It was kind of like a hobby for me. And so as of today, I still use that to test on. And it gives me an opportunity to, land flat my face or try something silly or look silly. Or if I screw up on a story, an Instagram story where I accidentally didn't realize I only had so many seconds and I'm continuing talking, thinking
for sure
listening to me, but they're not. It doesn't matter.
Absolutely. And I really only got into using my own name on my second Twitter, or my personal Twitter, last year when I ran for election. So I ran for city council in my city.
We didn't talk about that. Yeah.
Before that, I had a handle that had to do with things that I was passionate about in my life. So, which was walk, eat, live. So I believe you should walk as far as you can every day. You should eat healthily, and that you should live authentically, kind of thing. And so I used that as my handle for quite a long time. And people were like, no one will recognize your campaign if you use that name. And I thought, well, I don't know, I've got a couple thousand followers or whatever I had, something. So I sent them all a note and said, you need to follow me over here if you care about this other thing that I'm doing. So you're right. And people will follow you. If they're genuinely interested in what you're doing, they'll come along.
Absolutely.
Well, you're on to a new day. You're doing a new thing. And that's okay. Because I'm not friends with everyone I knew in high school either.
Yeah, it's social media is amazing. I absolutely love it. I have some preferences. Of course, I have a big preference towards Instagram and Instagram stories. And I love that. I just find it as kinder, gentler channel. But all of them have great attributes and reasons
For sure.
them, especially for business. There's all kinds of different ways that you can generate business through using social media. And that's a plug for Futura, of course. But anyway, so
exactly.
My last question, Megann, on this is, if you had a forum like you do today, what would you like to have or have a message to anyone right now, female or male? What message would you like them to hear?
Oh gosh, I'm sure that the message that I would most want them to hear would be something like, whatever it is that you've been dreaming of doing, start now. Whether it's a small step or a big step, start now. Don't wait till you're ready or perfect, or no one sits down at a piano and becomes perfect. You know, they practice, they learn, they make mistakes, they take lessons, they take chances, they try to play things that are too hard for them. People will know that one of my secret life things is I'm a mad knitter, like a really intricate, complicated patterns. The very first thing I knit was a sweater because I was too dumb about my knitting capability to know that that was way above my pay grade for knitting. but I learned a lot, right? I tried. And so if you've got a business idea or something you want to try out in your career working for someone else that you think is going to help move you forward, make a hypothesis about why that's good. Figure out how you're going to test it and test it out. And then if it doesn't work out, learn the lesson and figure out what you're going to do from it.
I think that's a great message. And I think that is so true as well, because if the world is not perfect and nothing is going to be exactly perfect when you start your business. So just get on with it, do it, you know, do a little bit of planning and do it, and not to be fearful of it. Just try it.
Yeah, and then maybe you'll never have to get a real job.
Yeah. Well, Megann, thanks so much for coming on. I am so glad we didn't even get to talk about half the amount of things that I wanted to talk about with you. So we're going to have you come back, and so we can go over all the other stuff that I wanted to hear you share with everybody else. So thanks again.
That sounds like an amazing plan.
So take care. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Penny. Enjoy yourself.
I will.
Okay, have a great day. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Ladies in Biz. Send us your comments on ladiesinbiz.com. We would like to hear from you.